I have released 55,000 pages of emails. I have said repeatedly that I will answer questions before the House committee. But I am confident that I never sent nor received any information that was classified at the time it was sent and received.
When the word criminal is used in conjunction with a current high-profile presidential candidate, you better believe eyebrows are raised and it puts people on the defense. First word was the FBI was not looking into Hillary Clinton's use of a personal and private email server as anything more than fact-finding. But a Thursday report in the New York Post upped the stakes, pointing to their sources calling it a criminal investigation. Not just what this says about the deepening inquest, but how close does anyone believe the Clintons will let even government investigators rattle around in their affairs? So let's dive in. First, a former Marine Corps intelligence cell chief and infantry squad leader, contributing writer at the Washington Post and the Daily Beast, James LaPorta. And also joining us, criminal defense attorney Geoffrey Nathan. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for joining us. And Geoffrey, let me start from you on a legal side of things. This report saying that it is a criminal probe. From what you're able to see and gather, does it fit what you would consider to be a proper criminal investigation?
Oh, absolutely. That's a no-brainer. I mean, look, this is one of the most powerful people in Washington who seems unable to shut a computer off, doesn't know how, and doesn't care less. And then to boot, she can't keep her mouth shut when she's supposed to. So, you know, of course the FBI is going to look into it and say, what's going on here? Does this person care about national security or not? And they're going to probe and probe until they find something, and they will.
When you said keep her mouth shut, though, could she really have ever just looked at the cameras and said, no comment, and walked away? Because let's face it, she is high profile and she is a candidate for president. She's got to say something.
Well, but when you're being criminally investigated, the best thing that David Kendall, her esteemed counsel, should have told her is to put a muzzle on her and don't say anything about this that'll be used against you, could be put before a grand jury. And so as a consequence, I really think she let herself down. Her lawyer probably told her not to make any comment about it. And so as a consequence, she's really just demonstrated the fact that she doesn't understand the gravity of the situation that she's put herself in, frankly.
James, let's talk about the gravity of the situation because the word espionage is being used here. That's a serious offense, but also we must understand that if you've got something sitting at home, a computer server of any kind, look, I don't care how many firewalls you have on it. There are people out there who are very good at getting it, and they want to get in, and they want to find out what's happening. Don't you think this fits an espionage tag?
I think a private server in her house is unprecedented, and it really shows poor mismanagement in terms of the State Department. However, when you start throwing around the word espionage, especially what the narrative has been right now, which is charging Hillary Clinton under U.S. Code Title 18, 1924, which is the doctrine that governs the removal and retention of classified material, you kind of run into a gray area whether or not you can charge her on that. And there are several reasons for that. One is if the information that she was emailing didn't have any classification markers at the time, and she didn't know it was classified, which has been her narrative, you can't technically charge her under that because the precedent for that law is knowingly removing classified material and then retaining that.
James, let's get real honest here for a second. This is Hillary Clinton. She knows about government. She's been there for years. She knows what goes on and what doesn't. Look, doesn't this speak to you as just being stupidly clumsy in the way that this was done, knowing full well what you're doing, and just a server being there and emails and trails and USB devices sitting out there? This is like an old 1960s movie I can think of, The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight, that was about a mafia team that couldn't do anything right. This is incredibly clumsy, is it not?
It's a yes and a no, and the reason for that is the intelligence community in general, and I include all the intelligence agencies with that and the Department of Defense and the State Department, is there's this under-classification and over-classification problem that we have right now, where the actual definition of what constitutes national security is so broad that it's sometimes very hard to determine whether one piece of information is classified and one part of information is unclassified and releasable to the American citizen.
But don't you err on the side of caution when you're the former Secretary of State?
Yes, I do believe she probably should have exercised more caution. I don't think the server should have, private server should have ever been set up in her house. But
that's a given.
To claim that she knowingly was sending and receiving classified information, that's a little bit disingenuous. Her private server, we don't know, to my knowledge, no private server can remotely link up into CIPRNet, which is how we send secret documents, or JWIX, which is how we send top secret documents. There's no remote access, so she didn't have access to those programs. And if you look at how we send emails over those classified programs, every email that's sent out is, the program prompts you to classify what that document is. Whether that's top secret, no foreign, whether that's top secret, releasable to Five Guys.
I got to stop you there because you're into some great stuff here, but we're almost out of time. I only got 45 seconds left. And Geoffrey, I want to come to you. There are those people who believe that the secretary and her husband, Bill Clinton, violated the RICO Act by deleting these emails and covering up the communications. Do you go that far?
I wouldn't go that far, but I will say this much, that national security directors have been hooked on violations of the Espionage Act and sentenced. We just had David Petraeus took a guilty and was about 10 feet away from a prison's door until the judge just said, look, I'm going to give you a pass here. We're going to let you go. Just go home and don't do it again. Okay, so it does happen that high-level government officials breach national security, get indicted by the United States Attorney's Office, and take a guilty. I don't know about jail in this circumstance, but I do think that there's going to be a probe which will lead to the possibility of a grand jury investigation.
We got a long way to go on this one. James LaPorta, Geoffrey Nathan, gentlemen, thanks so much for putting some proper words to what's going on here. We'll talk to you again real soon. Coming up next, the man on the show that changed American politics forever.